Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Air. And today I am joined by somebody across the pond from the US. Excited to be talking to Martin MacArthur, who is the CEO, founder and CEO at the Outbound Sales Guy over in the US. And my first guest who's physically based in the US, even though I've had Americans on here before. So it's nice to be chatting to somebody in a different time zone for the first time on Air. Martin, firstly, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Owen. It's a real pleasure to be on the show this morning, and this morning my time, I guess it's afternoon your time. Yeah, just one slight correction. I'm actually in Canada, not the U.S. So
there you go. I didn't know that.
I'm a Canuck, but a lot of what I do is with U.S. clients. But very happy to be here. Thank you.
That's interesting. I've seen you engage a lot with clients and people I know over in the US, and I made a big assumption there. So apologies for that, but good on you for correcting me. So where in the world exactly are you?
I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. So Eastern Canada.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for making the time this morning for you and this afternoon for us. And let's dive straight into it. So one of the reasons I invited you on the show is because I see your content on LinkedIn. We've never actually spoken or met before in person, but we've engaged a lot across LinkedIn. And I think, I've agreed with a lot of your content and your opinions and your beliefs on all things prospecting and outbound and sales development. And so I feel like we're going to have a very good conversation today. And we're going to focus a little bit on some of the differences across prospecting into, let's say, Americas versus EMEA, because obviously that's something that we're going to find some differences in. And in amongst that, look at some of the things that you do to be successful in your outbound that maybe some of our listeners and watchers can learn from. Before we get into that topic, though, maybe you could give us 2 minutes on who's Martin, who's the Outbound Sales Guy, or what does the business do, and just give a bit of context about you and your business.
Yeah, definitely. So for a little bit of context and background for your listeners and audience that may not be connected or follow me on LinkedIn, when it's right in the beginning of my bio on LinkedIn, but at a very young age, around the age of 7, I was diagnosed with a disease called retinitis pigmentosa, which caused me to go I say totally blind, but I can see basically the difference between it being really bright light and really dark.
Yeah.
So I'm totally blind, and I got into sales. Kind of happenstance, inside sales. Out of college, I applied for a sales. Back then, it wasn't quite known as sales development, but a inside sales role with a startup voice over IP company, and really enjoyed just talking to people on the phone and prospecting and understanding some challenges that people were facing, and just everything that really goes into prospecting that so many enjoy that do it day in day out. From there, I joined a decent-sized managed IT service provider, gathered some more formal processing training, etc., and eventually found myself in the outsourced sales development world with, excuse me, I believe a mutual connection of ours, Ryan Reisert, formerly of the Sales Developers.
Yeah.
So I was there for a while, and then really started to get a taste of the outside, like the outsourced outside sales dev environment. And unfortunately, I was let go from there, and I was kind of spinning my wheels a little bit, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I was putting out a lot of content, and I'm like, it was digging at me, maybe you should do your own thing. And finally I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And in August, July or August of last year, I forget which, I launched the Outbound Sales Guy, which is a outsourced sales development agency. Not too much difference, I believe, from on air. Targeting early stage founders, co-founders, sales and revenue leaders of computer software, IT service companies to really focus around qualified sales meetings and not, fill up the calendar with a whole bunch of crap and hopefully something sticks. So that's basically what I'm up to. And I've just started to work on launching more of a, also in conjunction with that, a consulting type offering to help those who are just looking to build out their process, but not looking for the full on outsourced service.
Yeah, got you. And look, this is why I'm really excited about this conversation, because you're right, we mirror each other a lot in different markets, and I'm keen to learn a bit about how those differ and how we have to approach things in slightly different ways. Firstly, congratulations on starting your own thing. Like you say, it's a bit of a leap of faith, and it's scary in normal times, let alone in the middle of a pandemic. So congratulations on taking that leap and getting it off the ground. I'm keen to just reverse back a little bit, if that's okay. I know that you said to me in a message beforehand that, I think it's a really good thing that you touch on your blindness and we don't just look at it as a negative, but we look at it as the opportunity that's come off of it. And you said to me how proud you are of it in a message. And I think that's a really interesting take. So what impact has that had on you in starting your own business and in working in sales generally? What opportunities has it created for you? What effect has it had on you in your career?
I'm not sure about the opportunity, but the impact or the effect that it has had is it helps me connect better, or not necessarily better, but it helps me connect more to a prospect, or not even to a prospect, just to another human being, because I find so many people, like a lot of people, they're so distracted with everything that's going on. Like you get on, for example, you get on a discovery call with somebody and they've got notifications popping up, they've got emails, they've got, they might be on their phone and so forth. Me, I can't be bothered to be trying to navigate 5, 10, 20 different things at once, because it's just not possible. So for me, I'm I'm more I'm giving more of my attention probably than some, or if not most, to the person that is speaking or that I'm connecting with, because if I'm not paying full attention to that person, I'm going to miss something that someone else might just be able to pick up in a subtle cue. So I would say that's the biggest, probably the biggest impact.
Yeah, interesting. Well, look, firstly, really good to know the background and the story. Let's move on to the day-to-day. Let's look at some of the day-to-day of what you do and what you offer and how you do it. And I'll try and string together some bits that maybe differ from over here in Europe. First, have you got any experience of selling into Europe? Have you got a comparison, or you've been over in the Americas and we've been here and we'll have to tie it together?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm just trying to think really quickly. I don't think I've had anything in Europe. I've connected with folks over in Europe, but as for actually working with anyone, I don't think so.
All right. Well, look, some of the people that we talked to will be expanding into the US. So I think this will be really interesting for people who are thinking about that, and equally for US organizations or Canadian organizations looking to expand into EMEA. Then hopefully they can pick up a thing or two from this discussion as well. So let's start with over there. Do you sell into any specific geographical regions, or are you selling right across North America there?
Primarily US only. I find for whatever the reason is, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I can't quite place my finger on it yet. I find with folks here in Canada, when you talk to them about outsourcing sales development, there just doesn't seem to be as much urgency or desire or what have you to really want to do it. It's more, no, we're gonna keep it internal. We're gonna build our own team. We're gonna hire somebody, and we want to get clients here before we go anywhere. Go abroad, whether that's U.S., across the pond, etc. Right. So I'm not real certain why that is. So I focus more so on the U.S. market, and primarily a lot of the interest has come from the western part of the U.S. So California, Washington State, more so in that direction. Although there has been a little bit of interest with companies in the East as well. Kind of like in the New York area, but really anywhere throughout the U.S. is the sweet spot.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's why I thought you were in the US actually, because I see obviously you're selling into the US and talking to the US language quite a lot, or sales language at least. Let's talk about the US then, because I think most of our audience will identify with selling into or from the US more so than Canada, and I think you've probably given some hints there as to why that might be, though we don't necessarily understand the reasons. Within the US, how would you describe the attitude towards sales development, cold calling, people receiving them, people getting prospecting emails or outbound approaches? What's the general reception in the market?
The general perception is that people are overwhelmed right now with whether it's email, LinkedIn, phone, etc. They're exhausted because there's been such a increase in so many similar expertise, right? Whether that's, for example, I'll use the sales development and sales environment, for example, conversation intelligence, right? Like you've got your Gong and you've got your Core. Who else you have? Like you have Refract in the UK, right?
Here. Yeah.
And now there's starting to be more and more that are creeping up and starting to take shape. So for you put that into context, well, there's so many sales and revenue and sales development managers that you can get in front of, but if they're using Gong, what's the desire for them to move away from Gong, go to a new conversation intelligence platform, for example, right? So, excuse me, that's the one thing I would say is like they're constantly overwhelmed with so many similarities. Like there's nothing really compelling enough for them to be like, oh, well, maybe we should take a call or have a conversation with this rep. So you've got to what I'm finding is you've got to make it more personal, and I don't mean personalization. You got to be more of a human being with that prospect, instead of going in with, oh, well, we're providing conversation intelligence and we're the best thing since sliced bread, and this is why you should take a meeting with us. Like you have to go in and develop a relationship, and it takes a lot longer than just going in like it used to, maybe 2 years ago, right? Like you just pick up the phone, send an email, whatever, and you got a meeting. Now you've got to earn that meeting, and it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah. Do you know what? You've touched on something that I'd just like to drill down into a little bit more, if that's okay, because you've said you've got to be a bit more personal. I'm not talking about personalization, but I'm talking about being more human. And I think, I've been banging this drum for a while now, where this, the velocity of uptake in personalization, that being people's, or at least people's perception of that being, oh, I know you like golf, I know you like that movie, whatever, has become.
We went to the same school, or we're in the same group, etc.
That's it. It's become It started because it wanted to be, I think, seen as a more authentic approach, and I think it started to have the opposite effect, where now everyone's doing it. It becomes it's not authentic at all, and we end up in a scenario where when I receive those, it's just cheesy and awkward and makes me feel uncomfortable. And far rather it wasn't there than it was there. To be honest, non-personalized generic approach almost is better than an over-personalized cheesy approach. And I love the way you said that. You said, got to make it more personal. And I'm not talking about personalization. And I think that's a really good takeaway for people, that, personalization is fine to a degree, but it's about being more human. And you can do that in a number of different ways, right?
Absolutely. And I'll give you, I'll just share a brief story. So when I was with the sales developers, I was reaching out to, I came across this VP of demand generation with a marketing automation company. And, at that time, I wasn't really taking a lot of stock in terms of doing a whole lot of research beforehand. But this person came across my, through mutual connections, etc. And I reached out to her and I sent her a note and made a few calls, and nothing materialized, but we ended up connecting, and I followed her and we've engaged with content and so forth. And now we have a really great relationship. And one of the things that she mentioned to me is, you got entrenched into my ecosystem just by being relevant, by commenting, engaging, following. Will that lead to an opportunity? Maybe at some point. However, this person has a huge network, and I know now that if she's talking to somebody about prospecting or outbound sales, I'm probably at the top of her list to be referred to or something along those lines, opposed to someone else, just because I didn't keep on, take a meeting. We developed a relationship.
It says a lot, and it's about being there when the time is right. And we talk about, people talk about personalization. I know Ryan, that you've referenced a couple of times. He talks about relevancy and timing and all that sort of stuff as well. And I think that timing piece, naturally, you've got to be relevant, but that timing piece is one of the most critical things. And one of the major mistakes I see in sales development, cold calling generally, is that the perception is I've got to get a yes to a meeting on every call, or as many calls as I can. And actually, the mindset should be, I've got to find a fit. And finding a fit means, is it the right time? Is there an opportunity? Can I help this person? And if the answer is no, because of timing or anything else, then booking a meeting is now the wrong thing to do rather than the right thing to do. And I think too many people are wired in a very one-dimensional way. So it's really, really interesting to hear you say that. Look, moving through this, I'm keen to understand your day-to-day. What is the favorite channel over selling into the US? So have you got a channel that you see more successful? Is it the phone? Is it email? Is it social and LinkedIn? Is it video now? Are you using voice memos? What are the things that are having the biggest impact in that market right now?
Yeah, for me, what's really been successful is LinkedIn. Like you mentioned off the top, right? How you didn't know who the heck I was until we got on this call this morning today, but just through various pieces of content and engagement. So LinkedIn for me is always been a huge channel, and I use LinkedIn multiple ways. So creating content, engaging with content. So and not just liking, like you can't just click like and move on. Digging. One thing I constantly comment on these people that are talking about creating personal brands and etc. is you got to engage, and by doing that, dig into the comments. Like, leave a thoughtful comment and look at some of the comments and reply, because that can lead to a conversation that can lead to an offline conversation. Yes, definitely using the LinkedIn voice message feature. I like that. That's really a good feature, and I'm not sure how many people are using it to its potential yet, but it's something that works well for me. And then also video. Video is something that until very recently I was apprehensive about and self-conscious with, and now I'm using video pretty well all day long, in and out. And video is a tough one because you may not get an instant response from it, right? Like you may not get a meeting today from it. But going back to what you're just saying is you got to change your mindset and your perception and create that video, send it out, and then continue to follow up, but don't be like, okay, well, take a meeting. I need a meeting. Can we have a meeting? Just did you have a chance? I sent you a video. Did you have a chance to take a look at it? Do you have any questions? Like, just be natural at the end of the day.
Do you know what? One of my favorite lines to be critical of there that you've brought up, and I'm sure you find ways of avoiding it, but let's touch and try and see if we can help people to avoid it. So did you see my email? I'm just following up to see if you watched my video, had the time to. It's one of my absolute pet hates because, A, there's no value added, and B, if I looked at it and I wanted to reply, I would have replied. And a lot of salespeople don't know what else to say. How do you fill that gap? What do you tend to put in there content-wise if you're following up on things rather than asking if they've already read it?
Yeah, so what I would do is, hey, Owen, I sent you over a video the other day. Not sure if you had a chance to take a look at it. However, if you had any questions around how to book more qualified meetings or fill your calendar with more qualified meetings or something along that nature, I'm happy to chat. No pressure. Have a great day.
Nice. That's great, because it's about continuing with your pattern, isn't it? It's about not allowing, because the moment you say, did you have a chance to see it, is the moment you're putting the ball in their court and asking a question that we already know the answer to realistically, but it's a comfort thing, isn't it? We like to be comfortable and touch on the things that people think we're going to touch on. So really interesting. I want to just check back on something you said earlier, because you talked about having multiple screens over and using multiple applications, and obviously there's some limitations for you, so you've moved past that, and that actually is a benefit because it allows you to be, I'm going to paraphrase here, more present, more there with somebody on a conversation. But I'm guessing you're using some sales technology. I see you commenting regularly on different forms of sales tech and things that you like and things that you don't like. So you've obviously got some opinions out there. Are there things that at the moment you're favoring, or that you sort of live by, or that are a real part of your day to day and you're seeing great success with?
So a few things that I'm always so at the core I'm a tech enthusiast, so I'm always playing with various tools and so forth. And also I like to provide feedback on, is this accessible for, in case there's someone else out there that might be using it in a similar circumstance. So right now I'm playing around with a tool called Skylead. Skyleads. I'm not sure if there's an S.io for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Playing around with that and still very, very early on, so I don't have a full opinion on that yet.
Yeah. What kind of tool is that, Martin?
It's a LinkedIn automation tool.
Okay.
So now I've checked out other LinkedIn automation tools in the past, and my hesitancy with them has always been, is this just kind of like a mass blast type tool where it's just going to connect with everyone and tarnish my personal brand that I've taken so long to work on. This tool, from all accounts that I can gather, doesn't seem to be like that. So I'm still not, like I said, I'm still in the process of reviewing it. I've used in the past, and I'm not now, power dialer called Orem, ORUM, which I like it. It's a good tool, but I've just recently gotten away from it. Just going more towards I'm transitioning towards more relationship type selling and warm calling, and opposed to actual quote unquote cold calling, and that's just for me, right? Like everyone's got to do what works best for them, and this is something that I want to try and gauge how well it moves the needle. I'm using a tool called Potion for video. It's really cool, and it uses AI and has a cool feature called dynamic video. So for those that are trying to send out, let's say you're trying to send out to 50 prospects video messages. Well, what's really cool about that is you could just record one video, select your 50 prospects, and then the AI will take care of the rest. So you don't have to re-record, which is pretty cool. I'm always looking for a good data vendor or data tool, because I find the ones out there I'm just not very happy with. Data quality, as I'm sure you're well aware, even over in the UK, is the lifeblood to any successful outbound campaign is data and data hygiene, and it's just it's not very good.
Yeah, it's the bane of our lives, isn't it? I'm my next question is around data, so let's touch on that for a minute, because I'm keen to hear. We've just established really quickly that we share challenges. I'm keen to hear your take on that, as in, well, I guess two questions. One is, what data vendors are you using over in the US? What seems to work best, albeit I think we'll put best in a in a bracket for the moment to accept that it's a long way from perfect for all vendors. And then secondly, how much of the work that you do and the experience that you've got is based around building your own data, using research tools, navigate all the rest of it, versus bringing in data or buying in data from a data vendor or a subscription-based model?
Yeah, that's two very great questions. So I'll touch on the first one. I haven't used it for myself with my own agency, but at previous companies I've used ZoomInfo. That seems to be a really good tool, and it seems to be the tool that a lot of U.S. companies are using. And I haven't heard a lot of negativity around ZoomInfo, other than maybe cost.
But if it's good, that's what comes with it, right? You can't have
exactly. And if it's really good, you don't mind paying for it.
No.
I've had connections and good friends tell me that Lead IQ is good if you're looking for mobile numbers. I haven't used Lead IQ, so I'm not sure. I currently, I partnered with Sales Intel. And it's okay. It's not great, but it's not bad either. So and I've heard in the UK, and maybe you can touch on this. I've heard a lot of good things about Cognism. I've heard good things about that, and I've also heard good things about Lucia.
And I think that's consistent with the findings we have here. There are a couple of things that I would add. The first is that it's widely perceived that ZoomInfo is extremely good in the US, and has historically not been as good in EMEA, particularly when it comes to getting direct dials and that sort of stuff. So I think that's something they're working on and aware of, but it's been accepted for a long time, and I think that's a branding thing they'll have to get over. Cognism is probably the UK's version of Zoom Info over here, from the US to here. I don't think it's quite at the level that the US has got with Zoom Info, but it's certainly, and they're a startup still. They're growing very quickly, but it certainly feels like one of the go-to companies. We use Sales Optimize. We use Bowhurst as well, which is another good data source. So a lot of research-led stuff for high quality. Again, much like what you said with Zoom Info, you pay for what you get with data. So if you want to go out and spend a couple of £100 or dollars, then yeah, go for it, but you get what you pay for. And that's just the reality. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. There are a couple of pillars, 3 or 4 pillars that feed into a successful outbound strategy. One is your rep and the quality of your rep. The other is the messaging and the messaging that you take to market, and one of the other is data. Who you're saying it to, because if you're saying the right things to the right people with the right quality of rep, you usually get some progress. If one of those things fall down, you stand still very, very quickly. And I think it's always worth spending money on.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, definitely. And to address your other question around the data, whether the success of using research data or source data, purchase data. That's why I'm such a huge champion, and I use LinkedIn so much, is because where's the first place you're gonna go to when there's any kind of a change, right? Whether you've changed positions, you've been promoted, you've been acquired, raised funding, whatever, the first spot you're going to go to is LinkedIn, probably.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is, you can go, you can create all these different filters on LinkedIn, and you may not be able to get the phone number, email address right away, but you can do all that other heavy lifting that I mentioned earlier, right? In terms of being a human being, creating that connection, establishing the relationship, earn some trust, credibility, all those good things, right? That will lead to an offline conversation. But if you are just an IC, right, and a rep, then you probably have a manager that's not going to be quite as patient with you on doing that process.
Yeah.
So I'm personally, if you're able to put together your own data, because a lot of when I've used data that is purchased, whether it's from a vendor like Sales Intel, Zoom Info, whoever, it tends to be a little more frustrating. And I'll be generous there.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And it's that old thing of speed, or it's the hare and the tortoise, isn't it? It's do you want to go fast and just have some data there and go, or do you want to enrich it in some way and have that quality of experience as you go? And you might not get off the ground tomorrow and set off at the same pace, but you'll be going in the right direction. And that is a way up for anybody in an outbound program. What's your priority? How valuable is the time of the person who's doing the prospecting as well? Because if you're and you've only got however many hours in a week, then you want that to be as efficient as you possibly can, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure.
Martin, it's really interesting to hear you talk, and it sounds like there's a lot of similarities in the way that we do things, but also across the US and EMEA. Has much changed in the last 2 years, and pandemic included, but not necessarily focused on the pandemic alone? We're seeing sales and prospecting get more about, like you said, being personalized and human, revert back to relationship selling a bit more, where it perhaps went away from that a little bit. We're also seeing people answer the phone less and get harder to talk to, but also in some ways convert at a higher way when you do get hold of them, because you've almost earned the right to talk to them. And I think, again, that relationship-based approach. There are certain trends that we see around email rates, open rates reducing and going through the floor over the last year, 2 years, the rise of video and personalization, those sorts of things. Have you seen many trends over the last 2-3 years that you can highlight over there in the US?
very, to be quite honest, very, very similar. Maybe the only difference from what I'm hearing, because I'm not, quote unquote, calling as much as probably some of the other reps that are in the US, but the only difference maybe is that there's a higher dial to connect ratio, or a higher conversion on the phone. That might be the only difference, and what that you'd have to do some research, and I'm sure once this goes live, there will be some folks that can validate that research from various tools and so forth. But I would say that, and the other trend that seems to be taking shape is, it used to be you kind of had two camps. You had B2B and you had B2C selling. Now, even more so since the pandemic, people are at home, and then they've got accustomed to Amazon doing overnight shipping or whatever. People want this seamless environment, right? So like they want more of a personal and authentic feel, right? So like if you're an SDR, don't be afraid to put some content, but make that content like don't be like it's not like 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago where it had to be very professionally curated. It had to be business tone. Like it can be just you. Like so I would say that's the biggest thing, that like there's this blend of, it's gone from being either B2B or B2C to being blended. If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely does. And I think, one-dimensional selling of I use one channel and one channel alone, it's fallen by the wayside and is not as effective in the majority of sectors. And I will caveat that in our experience, there are still a couple of sectors that you target into, and the phone is the obvious tool to use, and you don't need to worry about LinkedIn and video and all the rest of it. But if you're going into VPs of sales, if you're going into larger enterprise businesses, mid-market businesses, that sort of stuff now, particularly if you're targeting sales, marketing, founders, that sort of HR, corporate roles, then absolutely that integrated approach is key. And I had Tom Boston on the show a few weeks back, who was talking from SalesLoft, who was talking about his personal brand and how much it's helped him in his journey as an SDR. And who would have thought we'd have had SDRs out there working on personal brand 5 years ago? So yeah, it's really, really interesting to hear that is echoed over there as well. Well, look, Martin, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on trends or anything else that you see in the US, or if not, and by all means do that. If not, then if people want to talk to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, and who should come and talk to you about utilizing the Outbound Sales Guys services?
Yeah, so in terms of utilizing the Outbound Sales Guys offerings, if you are a founder, CEO, co-founder of a early stage software company with either no outbound processes in place, or you have one person in place but not generating enough pipeline or activity, feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, search the Outbound Sales Guy, or you can go to theoutboundsalesguy.com.
Love it. Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed chatting, and I wasn't sure what I would hear in terms of differences. It sounds like there's a lot of parallels, and I think that can give people confidence, either from over in the Americas and coming into Europe and the UK, or the other way around, that we're not too dissimilar in what works and what doesn't work. And it would certainly give me confidence in thinking of moving out there, or looking to open up new markets over there. So thank you very much for your contribution today. Really enjoyed talking to you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, Martin?
No, I think that's maybe just touch on your point there. Like if you are a company based in the UK and you're looking to scale out across the pond, the only differences I would maybe caution you, and this is from someone that targets the U.S. a lot. Canada and the U.K. are very similar in terms of their personalities and their dialects and their tonality, etc.
Yeah.
When you're targeting the U.S., especially the Eastern U.S., toughen up a bit. They're not quite as laid back maybe as we are, right? So, and then for those in the U.S. market, if you're looking at going across the pond to the U.K., someone like the really aggressive type, not tactics, but like you don't be quite as aggressive in your outreach. Be a little calmer, a little more laid back, because that's going to help you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I really quick story to finish. I had an American company who has a UK head of country here or EMEA head of country based in the UK. And when he joined, we were in the sales process, and the Americans nearly lost the deal for them because they were so I'm going to say American, which for sales wise on that case was so over the top and pushy. And as a fairly modest, humble nation over here in the UK, as in I think personality wise and the way that we like to buy, on average, it felt over empowering. So I think my experience mirrors that. And I know we're pigeonholing several hundred millions of people into one category, and that's certainly not the case. But if you look at the extremities of things, then toning down a little bit for the UK, and then again for some European countries as well, is a very sensible piece of advice. Martin,
but if you are those European companies, then you're going in the other direction, you may just need to ramp up a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. And that's about knowing your territories, isn't it? And knowing the culture and the buying cultures over there. Martin, thank you. Really enjoyed our conversation today. I know that our listeners and our watchers will have got some real nuggets from you. And hopefully if they're in and around the market for outbound services in the US, then they'll get in touch with you. But thank you ever so much for your time and your contribution to On Air.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, mate.